A world where the unimaginable was routine. The soldiers navigating dense jungles, facing constant danger, and witnessing horrors that would haunt them forever. Welcome to the Vietnam War, a conflict where the disturbing became the norm. A conflict that spanned nearly 2 decades left a profound impact on both the United States and Vietnam. It wasn't just the scale of the conflict that shocked the world, but the disturbing practices that became everyday occurrences. From the widespread use of chemical weapons to brutal combat tactics, many aspects of this war defy comprehension. In this video, we will delve into the darker side of the Vietnam War. We'll explore how and why these disturbing practices became normal. Vietnam War officially began in 1955 and lasted until 1975. It was a complex conflict involving the communist forces of North Vietnam, led by Ho Chi Minh, against the government of South Vietnam, supported by the United States and other anti-communist allies. Ho Chi Minh, the leader of North Vietnam, was a revolutionary figure who sought to reunify Vietnam under communist rule. His determination and charisma made him a formidable opponent. In the South, Ngo Dinh Diem served as the president of South Vietnam. His regime, however, faced significant challenges, including corruption and lack of popular support, which made it difficult to stabilize the country. On the American side, Presidents Lyndon B. Johnson and Richard Nixon played crucial roles in escalating and then attempting to de-escalate the conflict. Johnson's administration significantly increased U.S. troop involvement, while Nixon pursued a policy of Vietnamization, aiming to transfer combat roles to South Vietnamese forces. The geopolitical climate, the ideological battle between communism and capitalism, and the intense pressure on leaders to show results all contributed to the extreme measures that were taken during the war. Disturbing norms during the Vietnam. One of the most notorious practices of the Vietnam War was the widespread use of chemical weapons, particularly Agent Orange. This herbicide, containing the toxic compound dioxin, was used by the U.S. military to defoliate forests and destroy crops, depriving Viet Cong forces of food and cover. Agent Orange didn't just devastate the environment, it had severe and lasting impacts on human health. Both Vietnamese civilians and American soldiers exposed to the chemical suffered from a range of health issues, including cancer, birth defects, and other serious illnesses. The haunting effects of Agent Orange are still felt today, decades after the last sprays. Another horrifying aspect of the Vietnam War was the use of napalm. This incendiary weapon, a gel that sticks to skin and causes severe burns, was deployed extensively against enemy forces. Napalm bombs created intense firestorms that could incinerate everything in their path. The human cost of napalm was captured in one of the most iconic photos of the war. Kim Phuc, a young girl, running naked down a road, her body burned by napalm. This image shocked the world and became a powerful symbol of the war's brutality. The Vietnam War also saw the implementation of the draft, a system that compelled young American men to serve in the military. This practice was controversial and led to widespread protests and resistance. Many men, known as draft dodgers, went to great lengths to avoid conscription, including fleeing to Canada or engaging in acts of civil disobedience. The draft divided the nation and sparked a fierce debate about the ethics of compulsory military service, especially in a war that many Americans viewed as unjust. One of the darkest chapters of the Vietnam War was the My Lai Massacre. In March 1968, American soldiers brutally killed hundreds of unarmed Vietnamese civilians, including women, children, and the elderly, in the village of My Lai. This atrocity was initially covered up by the military, but eventually came to light, causing outrage and condemnation worldwide. Lieutenant William Calley, the officer in charge, was court-martialed and found guilty of murder. The My Lai Massacre exposed the moral and ethical failures of the war and raised serious questions about military conduct and accountability. Treatment and torture. Both sides of the Vietnam War were guilty of mistreating prisoners of war. American POWs held by the North Vietnamese were often subjected to brutal torture and inhumane conditions. The infamous Hanoi Hilton prison is a stark example of the suffering endured by captured soldiers. These experiences left deep psychological scars on the survivors and highlighted the extreme measures taken during the conflict. The treatment of POWs remains a controversial and painful legacy of the Vietnam War. The Tet Offensive. In 1968, the Tet Offensive marked a significant turning point in the Vietnam War. North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces launched a series of surprise attacks on over 100 cities and outposts across South Vietnam during the Tet holiday. The scale and intensity of the offensive shocked both the American public and military. While militarily it was a failure for the North Vietnamese, as they failed to hold any major city, the Tet Offensive was a strategic victory. It exposed the vulnerability of U.S. and South Vietnamese forces and significantly weakened public support for the war in the United States. The American public, already weary from years of war, saw the Tet Offensive as evidence that victory was far from certain. This event fueled anti-war sentiment and led to increased pressure on the U.S. government to find a way to end the conflict. The Phoenix Program was a covert operation conducted by the CIA and U.S. military to dismantle the Viet Cong's infrastructure. The program aimed to identify and neutralize Viet Cong operatives through infiltration, capture, interrogation, and assassination. While the Phoenix Program was effective in disrupting the Viet Cong, it was also highly controversial. Critics argued that it led to widespread human rights abuses, including torture and extrajudicial killings. Innocent civilians were often caught in the crossfire, leading to a legacy of fear and mistrust. The program's tactics, including harsh interrogation methods, highlighted the ethical and moral dilemmas faced by those involved in the conflict. The Phoenix Program remains a contentious chapter in the history of the Vietnam War, illustrating the extreme measures taken in the name of counterinsurgency. The draft and its impact. The draft was a cornerstone of U.S. military strategy during the Vietnam War, but it also became one of the most divisive issues on the home front. Thousands of young men were called to serve, many of whom had no desire to fight in a war they did not believe in. Draft resistance took many forms, from peaceful protests to acts of civil disobedience. Some men chose to go to jail rather than serve, while others fled to Canada or went underground. These actions sparked a national debate about the morality of the draft and the right of individuals to oppose war. The impact of the draft extended beyond the war itself, shaping the lives of those who served and those who resisted. It left a lasting mark on American society, influencing future military policies and contributing to the end of the draft in 1973. The legacy of Agent Orange. Decades after the end of the Vietnam War, the legacy of Agent Orange continues to haunt both Vietnam and the United States. In Vietnam, large areas of land remain contaminated, and many families suffer from serious health issues linked to the chemical. Efforts to clean up the contamination and provide support to affected communities are ongoing, but progress is slow and challenging. The U.S. government has acknowledged the damage caused and has provided some compensation, but many argue that more needs to be done. The long-term effects of Agent Orange serve as a grim reminder of the war's environmental and human toll. It also raises important questions about the use of chemical weapons and the responsibility of nations to address the aftermath of their actions. The influence of the Vietnam War on modern warfare. The Vietnam War has had a profound influence on modern military tactics and strategies. Lessons learned from the conflict have shaped U.S. military doctrine, particularly in counterinsurgency and guerrilla warfare. Today's military leaders study the Vietnam War to understand the complexities of unconventional warfare, the importance of winning hearts and minds, the role of media in shaping public opinion, and the need for clear objectives are all lessons drawn from the war. The echoes of Vietnam can be seen in conflicts like Iraq and Afghanistan, where similar challenges and strategies have emerged. The Vietnam War continues to be a valuable case study for military and political leaders navigating the complexities of modern conflict. The ethical questions raised by the Vietnam War remain relevant today. The use of chemical weapons, the treatment of POWs, and the impact on civilian populations are all issues that continue to spark debate. Modern conflicts have led to renewed discussions about the rules of engagement, the responsibility to protect civilians, and the accountability of military and political leaders. The Vietnam War's legacy serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the importance of maintaining ethical standards in warfare. International agreements, such as the Chemical Weapons Convention, aim to prevent the horrors seen in Vietnam from being repeated. However, the ongoing challenges in enforcing these agreements highlight the complexities of global governance and the need for continued vigilance. As we look to the future, the lessons of the Vietnam War will continue to inform military strategy and policy. Advances in technology, changes in warfare tactics, from the widespread use of Agent Orange and the brutality of the Phoenix program to the challenges of the draft and the intense urban combat of the Tet Offensive, each aspect of the war reveals a dark chapter in history. Understanding these disturbing norms is crucial, not just for historians or military experts, but for all of us. The Vietnam War left an indelible mark on the world, shaping policies, influencing public opinion, and leaving a legacy that still resonates today. By studying and understanding the disturbing realities of the Vietnam War, we honor the memories of those who suffered and work towards a future where such tragedies are never repeated. Let's take these lessons to heart and ensure that the horrors of the past guide us to a brighter, more peaceful future.